He got me.
You got you.
Okay.
You're on.
Good evening at 6 PM, May 11th, 2022. I'd like to open the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for this evening. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being televised live on local channel 18. Could all rise, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next, does anybody have a public comment regarding anything not related to any agenda items tonight? If so, you can check in with Mary Ann and you can have 3 minutes to make your comment.
Oh,
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask for public comment on each hearing tonight at the end of that presentation. All right, Bill Blaisdell is absent tonight, so sitting on the first hearing would be our 4 regular board members as well as Sharon. Sharon, would you read the first continued hearing, please?
58 Cayuga Avenue. Owners Charles and Helen Horn request a special permit under 174-17.1, raise and replace, and 174-33, setbacks from wetlands of the zoning bylaws to allow for a raise and replace of a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 65, parcel 9, Mashpee, Mass., continued from April 27, 2022 hearing.
Okay, I believe, is it John that's on the phone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go right ahead, John.
Okay, good evening, Board. This is John McTernan, and I represent Charles and Ellen Horn of 58 Cayuga Avenue. I had the pleasure to meet you at the last meeting in person. This one I need to do by phone. At the last meeting, there were some good suggestions by the board and the town engineer. We were a little bit concerned because we had already got a permit from Conservation, but we did work with Conservation about the proposed changes and talked to Drew, and Conservation is fine with that idea. So we moved the proposed house back 3 feet on the lot, and this does exactly what the board said it would do. It makes the side setbacks, gives us a little wiggle room. On the left, it will be 15 feet 2.5 inches. On the right, it's 15 feet 3.5 inches. And the setback from the front goes from 40 to 43. We still improve the setback from John's Pond from the existing to the proposed. As we talked about last time, this will be a new 3-bedroom code-compliant house, bringing up to present-day standards. There's plenty of parking with a 2-car garage and a driveway. It also improves the septic system, makes it gravity, puts in a new tank and new distribution box, and also brings that up to code. So we really feel with the changes that the board suggested. We also had our engineer talk to Chris, the town engineer, and put everything that was required onto the new plan. We did recalculate the lot coverage, subtracting the wetland areas, and it still is in compliance at 19%. So I think all in all, this will, certainly upgrade the value of this lot and the abutting lots on that street. So we would ask for that special permit for raise and replace and a variance on 174-33 for the setback from the water.
29?
All right, excellent. Tell me if you would, what is the setback from the wetlands proposed?
23 feet.
Okay.
So you're seeking relief in the amount of 27 feet?
That was one question I had. I know that you were concerned how tight the other ones were. Would you consider making it 27.2 or something like that to leave that area a little bit flexible as well?
Well, it's whatever the plan says. You've put a plan in front of us that we need to sign.
Well, he's saying that if he says, he just.
Okay.
So what are you requesting then, sir? I just want to make sure, if I were to make a motion, I want to make sure the motion is correct.
Yes, it would be then 27 feet.
27 feet. So what you're saying is the plan depicts 23 feet, and so you're asking relief in the amount of 27?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so you're not looking for any variances from the side or the front, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the height is?
The height is well within the range. I think it's 26 feet where you allow 35.
Correct. Okay, I don't really have any questions other than to hear from Chris. Sure, go ahead. Scott, any questions on this?
Nope.
Jim? No. Sharon?
No.
Anybody else?
No. Well, actually, one small one. I don't know if it's actually,
Okay, Scott has a question, John.
Okay.
your ledger says that the side setback on the right side of the house is 15.2. I just want to make sure I get that right.
Right. What I did is 15.2 feet. I made that inches, that's all. You know,
Oh, okay, 'cause the
0.2
plan-
is
yeah.
about
Oh,
it's
so-
2.4 inches.
Okay, because the plan
0.3
says
is
15.
3.6 inches. I just converted it.
Okay, because the plan shows 15.3.
Right. 15.3.
0.3. Okay, got it. That was my question. That's the answer. He converted
So
it
it's
to inches.
intense, not
It was
inches?
intense, he converted it to inches, yep.
Ah,
Okay.
the old conversion.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I do have a question.
Sharon, would you read the Board of Health comment?
She has a question.
I do have a question about the paper road. Is I guess I'll refer to one of you. I don't know, is that all okay?
What was your question?
There's this Iroquois Road here.
Oh, maybe,
Well, so that's the town engineer. So that was one of the issues we thought we may have had, but I believe the town engineer has stated in a letter to us that he is all set with all issues that
Okay.
were raised at the last meeting. So I was going to lie dormant on that simply because we were relying on Chris, and Chris
Okay.
says thumbs up to everything that was raised.
All right, then
Am I
I'm
correct
good.
in that, Chris?
I went, email and phone with Janet Bernardo, the professional engineer, and she addressed every concern I had and did a fine job.
Okay, then I'm good.
right,
Chris is
Sharon.
good, I'm good.
would you read the Board of Health?
Board of Board of Health. The proposed raise and replace of the existing dwelling requires the following tasks to be completed. A disposable works construction permit shall be requested via the online permitting Permitize to install a new septic tank and distribution per plan, with the permit being issued to a licensed installer. An asbestos inspection of the existing dwelling by a private licensed asbestos inspector with abatement if necessary, a rodent inspection by a Board of Health agent. The requirements shall be performed and submitted to the Board of Health prior to the issuance of a building permit. The existing septic permit states that a 3-bedroom septic is provided. The property is in a Zone 2, so the dwelling is restricted to 3 bedrooms. The floor plans depict 3 bedrooms. I have conservation.
Okay.
This project has been approved by the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Department requires the submission of 2 full-size copies of the revision plans for the final house configuration. Town engineer, all of my 428 comments have been addressed by the applicant. See attached. The comments were, move house back 2 feet to give some wiggle room for setbacks, revise building and wetlands setbacks accordingly, and add front yard setbacks, recalculate building coverage to include decks and reduce lot area to eliminate wetland/water, should come out to less than 20%. Add north arrows to all plans. Move dry well number 2 out of the driveway for 20-foot leach area setbacks. Keep shallow catch basin in driveway and pipe it to the driveway. Install a stone bottom interceptor trench along southern property line from the beginning of stone wall to the rear of the house. Leach the rear portion of the roof into dry well 1. The front of the roof can sheet flow to the swales on either side of the house. And then I have one from Catherine too. One from Catherine Laurent, dated May 10th. Good morning, Mary Ann. If approved, the applicant will need to file a curb cut permit from the DPW. Cayuga Avenue is a town road. One of the conditions of the permit will be to contain all stormwater on site. The plan does propose installation of dry wells, leaching catch basins for the driveway and runoff. Thanks, Catherine.
One question, John. Do you have the actual percent lot coverage?
Yeah, it's on there.
19%.
Okay.
It's on that legend.
And anything at all? Chris
No.
and David?
I'm fine.
Okay, I've got no idea. Anybody else? Any issues? Anybody in the audience have any comments on this? Okay, Ron, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we issue a special permit to Ellen and Charles Horn of 58 Cayuga Ave. Said special permit is under 174-17-1 raise and replace and 174-33 setback from wetlands. Said setback from wetlands is required to be 50 feet. Application is, the plan depicts 23, so the relief is the amount of 27 feet. Said special permit is included in the zoning bylaw to allow for a raise and replace of a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling on property located in R3 zoning district map 65 parcel 9 Mashpee, Mass. With the following conditions. 1, the board has determined the applicant meets all the conditions of special permit under Mass General Laws 48 section 9. 2, permitting plans prepared for Charles and Ellen Horn, 58 Cayuga Ave, Mashpee, Mass. Prepared by Horsley Witten Group, Inc. Sheet number 1, cover sheet. Sheet number 2, site prep plan. Sheet 3, site plan. Sheet 4, utility. Sheet 5, grading and drainage. Sheet 6, notes and details, signed and stamped by Janet Carter Bernardo, registered professional engineer, 34700, dated 3/23/22, revised May 3rd, 2022. Condition on all town departments' comments read in the record, including but not limited to Board of Health, Town Engineer, and DPW. Conditioned that any changes to plans will require the applicant to return to the Zoning Board of Appeals for possible additional approvals.
Okay. All right, Jim seconds. Let's do a roll call vote. Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
I vote yes. Well done.
Great, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Board.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Thank you.
Good work. Come on, Jim. Johnny on the spot.
No, it's not Johnny on this part, it's Jimmy on this.
Jimmy on the spot. I know.
house on the right-hand side going that way.
Kevin's over.
11th, right?
Kevin just swears he's a relative.
Sorry. I'm truly sorry, but I'm over it now. Amazing how quick I recover.
Yes, you do. Well done. Okay, so let's see. All right, who do we have on this one? Okay, so we got Cheryl. Okay, why don't we have Brad sit on this? All right, Sharon, would you read the first new hearing?
28 Jeep Place, petitioner Jamie and Paul Sagnaghi request a minor modification of an approved special permit, SP 2019-53, in variance V 2019-54, under the zoning bylaws to eliminate the prohibition of finishing the space above the detached garage on property located in the Papaneset overlay in R3 zoning district, map 118, parcel 108, Mashpee, Mass. Owner of record, Daniel J. Sagney, trustee of the Poppy Realty Trust.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Attorney Christopher Corain, representing the owners and applicants of the property. We are seeking a modification of both a special permit and a variance that was granted to the owner of the property in November of 2019. Specifically, we're asking the board to modify the special permit and the variance condition number 6, which prohibited the space above the garage from being finished and from having plumbing and heating. We think that in 2019, there was a prohibition on having finished spaces, so to speak, or having an accessory apartment outside of a detached in a detached dwelling. The bylaw has since changed. The bylaw now allows you to have an accessory apartment in a detached structure. So I think the condition is at odds with the current zoning bylaw, and we're basically punishing these applicants because they brought this application in 2019 as opposed to 2020 or 2021. An accessory apartment doesn't even need to come before this board. It is as of right. All they would need to go to David and get a building permit. So again, if this was done today, this condition would probably not even be part of the decision. There's nothing, I reviewed the minutes, I reviewed the decision, there's really no discussion as to why there was this particular condition. I can only go off the fact that in reading the 2019 bylaw, accessory apartments were specifically prohibited from being in a detached structure. And as I say, today, the current bylaw has no such prohibition. It is allowed. So again, we are now at odds with what current zoning allows, and I think in that particular case, the modification should be approved by this board. I did receive a copy of Attorney Wall's letter representing the abutters. I'm not going to rehash some of the issues. Those were before this board prior. The board obviously supported the raise and replace despite any objections by the neighbors. There are two issues substantively that I would like to address. One is what I just talked about. Attorney Wall suggests in his letter that there's nothing in the bylaw that allows you to have a living space above the garage. Per the bylaw, that is not true. you are allowed to have a living space above a detached dwelling, detached structure. That is allowed by the accessory apartment bylaw. It wasn't the case in 2019. It is the case now. So I disagree with his assessment. I think the bylaw is clear that it is in fact allowed. No use variance would be required. The second matter that I take issue with in his letter is that he suggests that this board does not have the authority to make the modification. And he cites a case, Board of Selectmen versus Monument Inn, which is a 1978 case. Unfortunately, in the letter, you don't get the whole quote. The whole quote is this: the law is clear that the board has the inherent power, without holding a further public hearing, to correct an inadvertent or clerical error in its decision so that the record reflects its true intention, so long as the correction does not constitute a reversal of conscious decision, does not grant relief different from that originally sought, and does not change the result of the original decision. That's the part of the quote you have in Attorney Wall's letter. The part of the quote you don't have in Attorney Wall's letter: the board has the inherent power without holding a public hearing. Well, we are holding a public hearing, and the board is well within its authority to give this modification. So in that light, I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't see that. I would also say that, as approved, the septic system allows for 4 bedrooms. So we're not overloading the septic. It was approved for 4. You could have 4 bedrooms inside the house. You could have 3 and 1, as of now. So there's no prohibition from the Board of Health of having 4 bedrooms. As I say, the septic allows for it. I don't think that there's anything that removing this condition would derogate from the purposes of your bylaw, as far as nuisance, health, safety, traffic. I did see the pictures, the one picture that Attorney Wall submitted. I think it's just convenient cherry picking. He picked the one time where they had a family reunion. There's certainly been no issues, to my knowledge, that there's been nuisance, congestion, police, or anything like that. Basically, my clients, they're empty nesters. They're really the only ones who use that property 11 out of the 12 months of the year. They don't rent it. They don't Airbnb it. As I say, July 4th and maybe a family reunion, you might see some cars. But I would suggest that all those cars are within appear to be all within the driveway. So, it appears that there is sufficient parking and land area for parking. So, again, I think it's important to note that when this project came before this board, the bylaw was different with regard to accessory apartments. Which weren't allowed in a detached structure. That bylaw has changed in the R3 zoning district, in any district, I think. It's as of right. Any residential district, you're now as of right to have that right. So again, if this project came before this board, they would have this right to put this in there. So I think really the condition is, inapplicable in light of today's bylaw.
Okay, so there's currently 3 bedrooms in the house?
That is my understanding.
What's the size of the lot?
If I can pull the old decision.
I have a site plan, I'm just trying to find it. 21,067 square feet total area, 20,100 square feet up,
That is correct.
20,000.
Yep.
So help me out here. It used to be, and maybe it's changed, you needed 10,000 square feet for every bedroom. Has that changed?
That's health department. To me, it doesn't matter how many bedrooms you have. That's dictated by the septic tank and things that I don't concern myself with. As far as I know, this proposal is for an office, but it doesn't matter to me if it's a bedroom or an office. To me, it's the same thing, just like Chris said. The bylaws, when this came to the board in 2019, since then, in 2020 is when these bylaws changed. I came on the scene in 2021. So in between that, so when I went to look at this building and do this permit, I had no reason to believe that they weren't allowed to have an apartment or an office above the garage. So whether it's a bedroom or an office, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, well, the reason why I'm asking is, there's a house in my neighborhood that was torn down. It's going to be a 5,700 square foot house. It's on almost 26,000 square feet. And put in a new septic, and Board of Health told them you could only have 3 bedrooms.
You'll be in the water protection zone.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know
It's
that.
also different if it's a tear down, rebuild, raise and replace, as opposed to an empty lot. I think that makes a difference too. If it's an empty lot, I think the rules might be different than.
Okay, well, this was originally a raise and replace, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This was, yes.
That's what he's
And
saying.
this is a
different.
raise and
That's what
replace.
he's saying.
This
Different.
might help you a little bit. Board of Health's comment. I was concerned too, at first, about the existing bedroom count, but I'm gonna read Board of Health comment now, if that's okay?
Please.
28G Place, Board of Health comments. The room above the garage was included in the bedroom count when the septic system was originally upgraded. No action required for Board of Health.
So
Glenn
if you
has no
put in
issue.
a new septic system for, let's say, 6 bedrooms, you can have it?
If,
Is
if
that right?
if the engineer
Well,
can make it
Well,
work in Board
I
of
think a
Health.
better way to put it, that's up to the Board of Health.
Right. I mean, in this particular case, if you read
Does that
the,
make sense? Sorry.
But how does my neighbor not get
It's
4
something,
bedrooms?
it could be just that, maybe the existing home was only a 3-bedroom.
Right.
That they tore down. The existing home was a 4-bedroom.
right. Yeah, the Board of Health approved a 4-bed, I mean, it's in your decision from the raise and replace.
have
The
to
Board
go
of Health
back and see
approved.
what-
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand all that, I'm
Right.
just
The original
trying
home
to
there,
understand it.
the original home maybe was a 4-bedroom.
Right.
And your neighbor's was originally a 3-bedroom. And they can't.
Correct.
But I still say it's a Board of Health issue. I mean.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so.
Well, we're approving another bedrooms.
Well, we're not.
No, we're
we
not.
may not.
No, we're not.
Oh, we're approving, no,
Board
I
of
don't think we have a right to
Board of
approve or
Health
disapprove a
approved
bedroom.
a 4-bedroom back when this was done.
Right, because technically, they could put a
Well, we know
4th
where this
bedroom in
is
the main
going.
house.
What? No.
I'm sorry?
If
I
I
said,
just,
we know where this room is going.
Chris, I have
Well,
like
yeah, they
several.
call it an office, but it's gonna be a guest room or whatever they're gonna use it for.
course.
But it's not, they only have 3 bedrooms. If Board of Health says they're gonna have a 4-bedroom system, it's out of our hands.
I understand that, I don't understand it. I understand what you're saying.
It's a Glenn question. Or unfortunately, the engineer's not here.
No, the desire, but it sounds like the Board of Health comments, suggest that it's a 4-bedroom, so,
That they counted that from day one, and they never put that bedroom in that time.
right. And as I say, if they wanted 4 bedrooms in the main house, we wouldn't have to come back to the board and say that. It'd be as a
Yeah,
right.
if there was 4
they'd-
bedrooms in the main house, then I think we would have an argument.
Right, then the Board of Health may have made a comment saying, you'd have to remove one of the bedrooms from the main house in order to have a bedroom above the accessory, the detached structure.
So Chris, I have a couple other questions, and I have far more questions for Attorney Wall than I do you, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll have a time to present his side of the case. Being the person that makes most of the motions on this board, I would envision the fact, or imagine the fact, that when I made the motion, I turned to the applicant and said, do you have a problem if we condition the use of the upstairs of that garage? Historically, I do that, and 100% of the time, the applicants say, no problem, and that's why I condition it that way.
Right.
So if that's the case, and I presume it probably was, okay, I now, I as one member, I can't see, have an applicant coming back that I believe from my stance that it is not a minor modification, because if it's important enough to put in the motion and ask the applicant if it's okay to put in a motion because he has no intentions of using it, it would seem to me it's important enough to, and I understand the law, the courts say you don't have to have, but it's important enough to me as one member to say, come in and make another application.
Right. Well, I'm not sure that there was any discretion for the board or the applicant at that time. I don't think that the board could say to you, no, I do want it to have a bedroom. I don't, because the bylaw didn't allow you to have a finished or apartment above a detached structure. It wasn't allowed. So I don't know that it mattered whether or not the
But
board
even if you
agreed.
take that equation out and you just go beyond that and you say, all right, so part of the motion clearly was, all right, that there wouldn't be sleeping or cooking, whatever arrangements above the garage. To me, that seems to be a large enough change, it wouldn't be a minor modification. Although I understand we have the right to consider it
Right.
minor or major, I'm saying as one applicant, it would seem to me and I'm believing through a couple of letters and an attorney in the audience, and I haven't heard from that attorney, so I am couching this statement by saying question mark.
Right.
I need to hear from him and others, but it seems to me it's a major modification. I'm just saying as one person.
Right, you know, I would disagree. I think it's a de minimis modification. I mean, it's allowed to have 4 bedrooms in the house. We're just, you could be just arguing that you're just shuffling things around.
But back then, you couldn't do it, right?
That's
So now
correct.
you can do it.
Right.
So bring it in front of us now, and we'll tell you whether you can do it under the existing rules that you say you can do it.
Well-
Because you couldn't do it then.
Well, I wouldn't even need to come
You can't-
before, I wouldn't even need to come before this board to have it done now.
Well,
If there was no condition-
Do you concur with that statement? You're the zoning
Well,
enforcement officer.
well, the thing is, I issued a permit with no reason to believe that there was they couldn't put any
Right.
finish
Well, correct me
over
if
the
I'm wrong. He's
basement.
saying, though, it's a new ballgame, and he doesn't have to come back to this board. You should issue a permit.
Well, I have to come back
I
only
did
because of
issue a
that
permit.
condition.
I did issue the permit, it was brought to my attention that this was,
Back
it
in-
He kinda caught in the
was
middle.
only for
2019
storage
condition it.
only, which I had no reason to believe it was, you know, I mean, because it was before I was here, and it was before this bylaw was allowed. So to me, I was issuing a permit by
So
right.
has the work already begun? It looks like, did I see
Yes.
some
They
pictures showing
did
work?
some rough work, they did some rough work, and I.
Because the permit was issued.
Correct.
Yeah, but I mean, but.
I get it, I
But
understand.
knowing that, you know, again, it's issued as an office, but
Understood.
which is,
And this is the plan that was
so I had
issued
to put a
because,
stop work order and bring it to the board.
because this
So,
plan
because of
shows
that
it as
discrepancy.
an office with a half bath, no shower facilities, and no kitchen, so it's
And
not.
you're
an
now
in-law.
asking for, are you asking for the same plan?
I'm sorry, there's no shower facility. I think it's just
No, so
a,
I'm saying, this is the plan that they're asking for. It's not, in-laws come up, but it's not an in-law problem because there's no kitchen facility, there's no showering facility.
correct, that is correct.
It's just a finished space.
It's just a finished space, I think, with a
Yeah.
toilet proposed. I mean, it's not
It's got a
finished.
half bath, yeah.
A half bath, exactly.
So
So,
it's, I keep hearing in-law, but it's not an in-law.
right, you know,
So I see they're kind of caught in the middle, in that our conditions said that they couldn't. The new regulations, am I correct, say that they could. If in fact they came to us today, they could. Or they wouldn't have to
They
come to
wouldn't
us,
have
they'd
to
come
come
to
to us.
you. So they
He-
come to you and they could.
He did issue a permit, then he
absolutely.
realized, he didn't realize it was a condition. How would he
I
know?
was, it was brought to my attention that there was
Yeah.
conditioned in 2019.
Yeah, he wouldn't know
2
that.
years, which I would,
You wouldn't have.
I
known
would
that.
never-
The
Why would
question
you
is
know?
thought.
legally, how do we get through this? The easiest and the most
Cleanest.
through a
cleanest
modification.
legal way to handle this situation.
Through a
I understand
modification.
you're caught in the middle.
Right, through the modification, I think that's the easiest and simplest way to do
I'm
it.
concerned
I mean, we're
about
having
it.
I don't know what the difference would be between not having this modification and having and refiling a full application. I've basically done the same thing. I filed an
Well, you
application.
have, but you've notified the world, right? You've
Yeah,
notified.
we're at a public hearing.
Well, but you haven't notified the world on this application. You've
Yes.
notified only through an agenda item, not through notification through registered mail or an advertising position, right?
I did, no, I mailed.
yes,
You did.
Yeah.
that don't matter.
So you followed as if it was a variance.
Or as a new
Advertisement.
application.
So you advertised as if it was a major modification.
Correct.
basically. Am I correct in that statement?
It says modification, doesn't say major.
I understand,
Right.
but
It was advertised,
That's why it's-
I got in a butters list, and I sent out registered mailing, or Mary Ann sent registered mailing, so
I stand corrected.
I don't think Attorney Wall would be here.
Somebody in the audience is shaking his head. But I'm not the form of the chairman.
There'll be time in a bit for comments from the,
I'm not sure
I
Attorney
have a
Wall would be here
question.
unless he got some sort of notice beyond just an agenda item.
I have a question which I think Dave already answered before I asked the question. Did I see that work has already started?
Yes, that is correct.
Permit was
Because the
issued.
permit was issued.
He issued
So
the permit.
when did the permit get issued?
Months ago.
So you didn't start any construction before?
No, it was probably within the last 3 or 4 months
All right.
of the upstairs
The builder was
space.
doing everything that was
Yeah,
legal.
everything's-
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I didn't know that.
Man,
I had no
a
idea.
lot of factors.
I didn't know that either until now. That
Yeah.
they started the work, but I don't see it as an issue because they stopped.
Right, yeah, Bob Fox is the builder. I don't know exactly when he applied for the permit for the upstairs or started the work on the upstairs, but it wasn't done, I think it's done more recently than, 2019. So,
Anybody else?
I await input from the audience.
Okay, well, we have some
Well, I read Board of Health
comments
already.
to read in, do we?
And we don't really have much to read in.
Conservation, yeah.
Yeah, we have conservation,
Conservation says it's approved.
Board of Health,
Board of Health,
I read it
Scott
already.
already read it in,
yeah.
and nothing from Catherine. Town engineer has no issues.
Any comments, Chris?
I
David?
wasn't aware of all this, but, I understand where Mr. Corain's coming from. It's got a condition that was imposed, and I can see why Dave would have been not privy to that. There's no engineering decisions to be made, so it's on you guys.
It's not touching the ground.
Thank you very much, Chris.
and there's no, as I said, there's no change to the structures, there's no, we're not expanding the structures, no change to the footprint,
conservation
lot
they want us
coverage,
to read it.
setbacks, there's no changes in that regard. We're simply asking to
Board of Health
be
would
able
be
to.
the only one I'd be concerned about, and we're not concerned.
Okay, we'll take comments from the audience. Brian, would you like to start or go last?
I'd like to start if that's okay.
It's fine with me. And for the record, if you would, your name, et cetera.
Certainly.
So I already have that, so I'll just pass them down.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney, and I represent, in this particular matter, Doug Crosby, the owner of 29 Wilson Grove, which is an abutter under Section 11, and also Glenn McCarthy, who's an owner of 16 Jeep Place, which is, he's not a direct abutter, but he's a close-by neighbor. If I may, I don't think it'll take more than a few minutes, but I have an argument to be made, and then I think I could be available to ask any or answer any questions. Would that
Go
be
ahead.
okay? So I have three arguments to be made. I'm going to outline them, and then I'll get into them. The first of which is I think that the request for relief is beyond the scope of what the board can do as a modification. And I don't dispute, I know Chris very well, if he says notice was given and Mary Ann said notice was given, I'm sure it was. So it's not a question of whether there's been notice. I just think it's simply beyond the authority of the board, and I'll explain in a minute. The second, I respectfully disagree with Attorney Corain. I believe that under the bylaw, detached habitable space in an R3 zone is not permitted, except for an accessory apartment, but that's not what the application is for. An accessory apartment is very specific. It has certain requirements about square footage, parking, about leasing, et cetera. I think the application is simply to remove the condition that says this garage upstairs shall not be finished, and I think that's fundamentally different. I think if they want to come back for an accessory apartment, they'd have to file an application for that, and then the board could review that on its merits. That's not what's before the board tonight. The third argument is that, assuming for argument's sake, the board could modify the permit and you could grant detached habitable space in an R3 zone, you shouldn't because of the standards that are applicable, substantially more detrimental and derogating from the bylaw. And again, I just wanted to outline that, and then I'm going to get into it. So the first argument is that what's before the board is a modification request to eliminate condition number 6, which appears in both a special permit and in a variance that authorized the tear-down rebuild of this particular property. And I did submit a quote. I respectfully disagree that it's limited to correcting errors. When the courts talk about the board's authority to modify a permit, there's inherent authority to make a clerical correction without a public hearing. The authority of the court, the authority of the board is much broader when it comes to modifying insofar as when notice is given, which I think is what we are here today. However, having said that, I still think that what I wrote in my letter is correct. And the scope of the board's authority on a modification is there are 3 limitations. You cannot reverse a conscious decision that the board made before. You cannot grant relief that's beyond the scope of what's originally sought. And you cannot change the result of the original decision. So in the original decision, I was there, and I'm not going to suggest that my memory is good back to 2019, but I read the minutes. And in the minutes, one of the questions that Chairman Furbush asked, you wanted to know the amount of bedrooms, and the project engineer back then was Tom Bunker, and he explained that the existing house has 4, but the new house will have 3. So that was directly addressed by the board, and then when the motion was made, condition number 6, as we know, appeared in both permits, both the special permit and the variance, and condition number 6 says, conditioned that the garage to have an unfinished space above, no plumbing or heating. So I would suggest that it was a conscious decision of the board back in 2019, and that the request to eliminate that condition is the reversal of a conscious decision, and therefore beyond the scope of a modification. Secondly, the relief requested is different than the relief sought. And this is a fine point, but it's a very important point. So the house, the project that was approved back in 2019, there were 2 aspects of it. There was an application for a special permit under section 174-17.1 to raise and replace the pre-existing non-conforming dwelling. And there was a detached garage that was proposed as a separate part. The raise and replace is limited to the pre-existing dwelling, and Attorney Crane, Mr. Crane's father, was representing the applicant at that time, acknowledged that the scope of that authority extended to the dwelling and not the garage. And so the variance was for the garage, and the variance that was applied for and approved was a setback to wetlands. And so the detached garage exists by the variance, the dwelling exists by the special permit. And so my point here is that the relief being requested to eliminate the condition to allow unfinished space is different than the relief sought before, because the relief sought before was a dimensional variance to allow the garage to be closer to the wetland than your bylaw allows. It had nothing to do with the use, because the proposed detached garage was allowed as of right as an accessory structure to the primary structure. The request for relief now is to change a garage to a garage with habitable space. And the form of that request comes in a request to modify a dimensional variance. They're asking to take the variance to the setback for the garage and turn it into a building that has habitable space. And that requires a separate application, in my opinion. And the third kind of goes, it's kind of covered by the first 2 arguments. The third limitation on your authority for modifications is changing the result of the original decision. And as I've kind of made the argument, changing it from a garage to a garage with habitable space is a different thing. Assuming that you get over the rail and you think that you can proceed and grant the relief by a modification, my next argument would be that you can't grant this relief. So the way that I read the bylaw, in my humble opinion, is there's a provision that says all uses are prohibited unless they're expressly permitted. And when you go to the use table in section 174.25, single-family dwellings are allowed as of right in the R3 district. Garages are allowed as an accessory. Detached habitable space is not allowed except for accessory apartments. And again, that's a very special animal that has certain requirements concerning who it's leased to. The owner has to be an owner-occupied building. There has to be parking. There's compliance. That's not the application before you, so I would suggest that's not really applicable. And I would suggest also it's been the practice of this board to be very careful about detached dwellings. In my humble experience, in my times that I've been here, I remember a case at 401 Monomoskoye where I had a client that had a single-family home and had a garage, and he wanted to have a bathroom in the garage. And the building inspector said, no, you can't have habitable space in a detached structure. So we appealed that decision, and we came to the board to grant relief. And the board was very careful. They wanted to know why the client wanted to have the bathroom, and it was, in that particular case, he had some antique cars and was going to spend a lot of time out in the garage tinkering with the cars. And the board granted that permit, but highly conditioned it and said, no living space, no bedrooms, no kitchens, and if it's heated, it can only be heated in a certain, area. So again, I think the board, the bylaw does not allow this type of relief, and the board in the past has been very protective of that. And finally, the last argument that I want to make comes down to the requested relief should not be granted if you get over the first 2 hurdles. So under the special permit, the test is not substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. And under a variance, it's that there must be a hardship due to soil, shape, or topography of the lot, and that the relief can be granted without derogating from the bylaw and without detriment to the public good. And I'm going to say two things, and I think there are some other neighbors here that are probably hit these points more, so I'm going to just be very brief about it. I represented Mr. McCarthy at the original hearing, and he was very concerned that the proposed project would change the drainage and stormwater characteristics of the area. He had me say back then that the water drains down Jeep Place towards the ocean, as well as down Wilson Grove. And the proposed project, one of the other arguments I made back then, which was not successful, was that it called for filling land subject to coastal storm flowage. It called for filling the floodplain. And what happened was the project, my client was very concerned that filling that floodplain would reduce available area for floodwaters to go. And he was also concerned that it would change the groundwater table. And now that the project has actually been built the way it is and with the retaining walls, my client and others have observed the drainage characteristics have in fact changed. He has told me that there is worse flooding during storms and tidal surges, and he is concerned about flooding basements, and I'm sorry, that the street does flood, basements flood, yards flood. That's what he informs me of. There's also been a failure of a septic system at 31 Wilson Grove, which is just abutting or just next door to the subject property. And we believe that that is evidence of a raised groundwater table. So in regards to substantially more detrimental and derogating from the public good, we think that further intense use of the property by another, we think a bedroom or office, is going to further utilize the septic system, further strain the groundwater. And also insofar as congestion is concerned, I did include a picture. I heard Attorney Corain say it was a family reunion, but the fact of the matter is there were 9 cars in the driveway, and my clients are very concerned that if further intensive use of the property is allowed, that's just going to intensify, and under your bylaw, you can take account of congestion, noise, pollution, et cetera, and we think that intensification of this property will trigger all of those, and so therefore, if you can grant the relief, we respectfully submit that you should not. Those are my arguments, and I think there'll probably be some questions.
I think you spoke about detached garage,
Yes.
and are you saying that it is a detached garage?
Yes, what I was saying was that when the project first came before the board in 2019, it was a proposal to raise and replace, as in tear down and replace, an existing, pre-existing non-conforming dwelling, and I believe that the proposal was to add a new detached garage. And so the proposal to add the garage couldn't be included as part of the tear-down rebuild because it wasn't part of the dwelling. It was a proposal to add a new garage, and if I'm wrong about that, I stand corrected, but yeah, it was a proposal. So it was to tear down and replace the existing house under section 174-17.1, and a proposal to build a new detached garage on the property. And
Is it detached now?
Was there a detached garage there before?
No. No, I don't think there was.
right, and so that's why I was saying that the detached garage exists under the variance. It's at the use of the structure.
So if it's going to be an accessory apartment, let's say we said, yeah, you can do it. Or if it's not going to be, no habitable living space, you can certainly fix it, make it an office. But once you get into accessory apartments, now you open another door, it's got to have its own entrance.
Which the
It's gotta
detached
have-
garage would have.
Yeah, it's got to have, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So I want to hear about that.
So may I ask? I think that.
Go ahead.
I think this, so, I have like several questions and some statements, but I think some of them are on point in reference to what Jonathan just said. My first statement is Board of Selectmen versus, Stockbridge versus Monument Inn. I think that has some standing in this. I agree with some of that. But I don't agree whatsoever on Bolter versus Board of Selectmen of Wayland. I think that's totally off point whatsoever. More importantly, though, do you agree, and I think this is very important, if the applicant were to come in today and follow all the guidelines for an accessory apartment, parking, separate access, et cetera, this board could in fact issue a permit for that, issue a special permit for that?
I'm going to answer that question by saying I think that the bylaw allows the application to be made. I don't know enough about whether it would meet all the requirements because that's not what was made tonight.
No, but I'm saying that, so if we were to look in the zoning bylaw right now, we know it's a parking spot, we probably would have. We know it's a separate access, okay? It has to be an in-law, whatever. So my point is if, I'm going down a little bit different road maybe than other members. Here's the road I'm going down. I believe the application is probably, in my opinion, a major modification. So it cannot be done as simply as amend, one person speaking. But I would recommend to the applicant, there's another way to do this. And that is, if he chooses to file for an accessory apartment and meet those guidelines, come back to this board, properly advertised, and meet the guidelines, and as one member, that would make sense.
I don't disagree. I was,
But, so I'm trying, so this doesn't go roundy the block 12 times.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get your input, and I understand he has to meet all those conditions, whatever there may be in the zoning bylaw. But if he clearly meets those, do you believe if he meets those conditions, he would have a right to an accessory apartment in a standalone garage in this situation?
Again, I think that wasn't before the board. I heard it for the first time when Attorney Corain made that argument. I'm not trying to be cagey. I'll agree that the property owner has the right to apply for an accessory apartment, but I'm not going to agree that the application can meet all those requirements.
I think that the applicant is caught in the middle, and it's very clear, right? So the applicant made an application during a time when in fact he may not have had a right to a standalone, separate apartment or whatever you're gonna call it.
Right.
Finish above that garage. He may not have had those rights. Now, he may have those rights. And I'm being very careful in my words here.
And I'm not trying to be cagey, Mr. Bonvy. I think that the bylaw was changed. It provides now for an accessory apartment that was not available in 2019. And I am agreeing with you that the property owner has the right to come to the board and apply for that. But if I can further answer, as Mr. Goldstein pointed out, that's not what's on the plan. And I think
I get you. I understand that, and again, one member here, I'm sitting here, I'm understanding what you're saying and why, and it makes sense, some of the things you're saying, but I'm just trying to find a way, okay, where this applicant can get down the road to where he wants to get to, and still be, in my mind, at least my mind, under the regulations in a sound footing.
I understand. May I further respond in one other way? So my clients have a different view of what's going on. So if, as I read from the minutes, the applicant came before the board to tear down and rebuild a 4-bedroom and agreed voluntarily, it was their application, to go for a 3-bedroom. They were proposing the detached garage, and the board made it clear that they could not finish that space. And I think on those plans, it was storage. And so the way my clients are looking at this is that they came in, and because just to make further clear, Mr. McCarthy appealed that decision, but then had a meeting with the neighbor and talked things over, and as a result of that conversation, withdrew the appeal. And now he
Were
finds
those conditions that he agreed to met?
the conditions, well, nothing was
Well,
met.
he dropped the appeal.
He dropped the
So there must
appeal.
have been some type of understanding between the two in order to drop that appeal.
I wasn't there. I think that it was a neighborly conversation, and that my client simply decided that he didn't want to
So
litigate.
he just decided, you know what, I'm a good guy, I'm dropping the appeal because I like you.
Within a few weeks of it being brought. Having said that, it was his understanding it was a 3-bedroom and that there was storage
I gotta
above.
tell you, it's one member again, I'm speaking as one member. I don't care if it's 3-bedroom or 92 bedrooms, I'll tell you why. We have a letter from the Board of Health saying it's 3 bedrooms, could be 4 bedrooms, I believe.
I'm assuming Board of Health approved it's a four-bedroom septic system,
Right.
I'm assuming.
Right, and
So
that-
they don't have a problem with that, but I'm not the
upgraded the
Board of
septic
Health, and I
already.
don't wanna even step, I don't even wanna go near Board of
It's
Health.
it's not my point. My point is that an applicant came in and said they wanted a three-bedroom with a garage and storage space, and now they're coming
Agreed
back.
100%.
And now they're coming back for something else.
Agreed 100%, and maybe they're coming back the wrong way is my point. Maybe they have to come back a different way, and I'm trying to understand from you, I'm trying to ask you the question.
Sure.
If they were to come back in a different way, which is under the accessory apartment bylaw, okay, and met those criteria very clearly, that criteria is very clear. Meet that criteria, what is your statement about that issue?
I think they're eligible to apply, and if they meet all the criteria, then the board could grant them the permit. But again, I don't think that's what they're asking for here.
Maybe they have to ask for that.
Yeah, they're
I don't
not
know.
asking for
As
it.
one member, maybe they have to ask for that.
And, well, I could tell you, they're not asking for it because they haven't made any presentation to you about any of those criteria and meeting any of those conditions. The only thing before you is a request to eliminate a condition that says, remove the condition that requires it to be unfinished space.
And I can tell you, as one member, I'm not so sure I'm willing to go down that road, but I'm trying to understand what road to go down.
Sure.
Attorney Wall, if you, just 1 second, I'm going to have
Of course, yeah. Of course.
Chris respond to that.
Yeah, I just, we keep talking about, what's the next step? And if we go down a different route, I only am asking for the conditions to be removed because I do not have to come back to this board for an accessory apartment. It's as of right, it only requires a building permit from the building commissioner. So I don't have to come back for this board to get a special permit. The accessory apartment is not a special permit. It's as of right. I have to prove to David that it meets the criteria, and he can issue the permit without having to come back before this board. So that's why I'm simply, I can't do that because there's a condition on there that's preventing him from doing that.
So I get it, and so what I'm saying is then I'll change my statement, and that is, I believe your request, your ask, is beyond a minor modification. I believe if you want to couch it as a major modification, I would have no problem removing it. Because then at that point in time, whatever rights you have, you can use. But my point is I think because the motion, it was a very integral part of the motion at that point in time, to just remove it out of a variance, for me, is not an easy thing to do.
But I guess we're getting tripped up on this minor, major modification. There's no such thing in this, there's no application for a major or minor.
No, but there is, but many
It's a
people come in front
modification.
of us and they asked us as part of a permit and da-da-da, and your father's done it 100 times, right? I'm guessing 100 times, and we've said, yeah, that's not a big deal, we'll change it. I'm saying to you, this is a big deal.
Right,
So
but-
call it what you want.
but that's why I'm-
Whatever nomenclature, whatever you want to use, I'm saying this is the basis for a decision for a variance at a special permit, and it was part of my motion, I believe it was my motion. And I'm saying to you, for me to just strike it is a problem for me, okay? I have no problem if you advertise and you come back for a modification. I'm in favor of striking it.
Right, but that's what.
But a different way, handled a different way so that legally, in my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, you're far more intelligent of that than I am, but my opinion is, then if there were an appeal brought, it would be defendable.
But I guess I'm not sure what I've done, what have I done already that would be different? Because I filed the application with the board, I noticed it, it went through public hearing, we're at a public hearing. If you were to tell me to come back, I'd be doing the exact same thing. So nothing's going to change from what I've done already to what you're asking me to do.
Again, this is by right. This came here, I mean, if they did another application, I would give them the permit by right. But the only thing I know now that I didn't know then was line 6. So this is all about.
You know what,
line 6.
here's the motion that I would make if I was asked to make. We hereby approve the minor modification of an approved special permit and a variance. I'll say it if I'm asked to. I'm not gonna vote in favor of it, but I'll say it. See my point?
Well, I mean, I guess
I'll say it, because I don't think it's minor.
Well, I understand that, but again, we're making this distinction about minor and major, and there's nothing in the bylaw that requires me to, I filed a modification, I submitted it, it was stamped by the town clerk, I brought it to the building department, it was advertised, it was registered, certified mailings. I wouldn't be doing anything different.
All right, so you're saying that this is not an accessory apartment, is that what you're telling me?
Well, right now, it's not correct.
That's what's throwing me up. Everybody keeps
Oh,
calling it
hold on
accessory
one second.
apartment.
So You're going to put a bedroom there, let's assume.
Well, I mean, technically, that's not the plan, but it could, if,
We know where this is going.
all right, well, I'd have to apply for a building permit.
So it's not an accessory apartment, so
Correct.
if we don't give you any plumbing in there, you've got no problem with that, right?
No, it has a shower.
got a-
I mean, it has a
So you
toilet.
take the shower
Has
out,
a
take the
toilet.
toilet out,
If-
take all that out. You've
if-
got no problem? Because it's only another bedroom.
My client, I don't think it's necessary, a necessary concession. However, my client, in order to get, if that was the deal that the board hung their hat on, you know, my client could do without the plumbing. I think it's unnecessary. I think my client's entitled to it. However, if you condition it, my client would not appeal that.
Maybe you should apply for an accessory apartment.
But but I
It does-
can't,
it-
He doesn't have to apply to us.
I don't have
get
to
it.
apply to the board.
I get it, I
Well,
get
then
it.
you've got to answer all.
See, I just think the
It'd
way
be
of
same
replacing
circle,
or removing
John.
it
It's
is
the same
incorrectly
circle,
done.
they already did. Everything they applied for is by right. These are done all over town. I don't know where, anywhere where it's assumed that you can't finish a room over in a garage because it's an R3. So if it's an office, it's by right. If it's a bedroom, it's by right, it's accessory to the house. We do these all over town, on Coastline, they do them on Monomoskoye, with one egress because there is no kitchen in there. So it could be, any one of these three can be,
Okay.
or an
Do you have
ADU.
any problem if we condition it with no kitchen?
Well, there was no kitchen proposed. I mean, I
So we're going to condition
I'm
it without a kitchen?
As one member, I'm not comfortable taking the bathroom out, the half bath. I would have a concern if there was a shower in there in the kitchen, either or.
Right.
But if it's being proposed the way it's drawn here, I have no problem with that.
and I don't think my client would have any problem with
If it's
that.
conditioned on the kitchen, I think, because otherwise it's an accessory apartment if you put a kitchen in there.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
then
I'm-
you need a second.
A second egress.
I don't even see why we're getting in conditioning it, because clearly he's saying he has a matter of right, and our zoning enforcement
saying
officer
that-
said he has a matter of right. Why are we?
I'm not sure what they're telling us is what's going to eventually happen.
Well,
No,
then
I
we
get
have
it,
to approve the
but
plan
our
that's here. You can't
zoning
condition it.
enforcement officer is saying, all hands off, guys, because you don't have any rights in this, right?
I am only
Meaning us.
here.
No, I'm saying if they comply to all the ADU, it's by right again, and we're
Exactly.
right in the back.
Correct.
So if this
Fine.
condition were removed, then at that point in time, they could come to you and get an accessory apartment, they get anything within whatever the bylaw
But
says.
there's more they gotta
Yeah.
do to get an accessory apartment. They need another egress.
Can I make a
They would
point
have
of
to do more
information?
work, but they could do it.
That's not what they're applying for.
Can I just make a point of information before the conversation goes too far? What the bylaw says is a building permit authorizing one accessory apartment may be granted, so it's discretionary, by the Board of Appeals if consistent with the following. I'm reading right here. So
So that's gonna come back to us.
yeah,
Right, I agree.
and it's
I thought- no, he's saying it
discretionary,
doesn't.
so it's not a matter of right to
If
get
they
it.
wanted to put the bedroom, they have 3 bedrooms in the house. If they wanted to cut one of those bedrooms in half and make it a 4-bedroom house, they could do it. no problem.
But David,
Putting
we
the
need to
bedroom here-
understand whether he has to come back to us under accessory
What's
apartment.
the number?
It's 174, 45.4, and it's on page 88 of the bylaw.
88, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, 174-45.4, what number?
Right at the very first paragraph.
Number A, in order
No,
for an
above-
accessory apartment to be permitted?
Above that, it says a building, right under accessory apartment before
What year, do you have a 2017? What bylaw do you have?
2020.
Oh, of course, I got the 17. I'm only a member, that's all I get.
We should-
Wait a minute, I got an 18.
Did I take the wrong one?
We got an
All right, do
18
we have-
here.
I don't know, 20.
What do we have? We got a 20?
That's all I've got, Mary.
Does anybody have a 20?
No. Yeah, I do. I can do
All right, would you
that.
go to page 88 or somewhere close to that?
I don't think that's the right one.
Find 174-45.4.
88, but that's the wrong edition.
This is 2020.
Gotta be close.
By the Board of Appeals, right there.
That is an old, that is.
Yeah, I don't
old.
think that's the right one.
That's
I don't think
outdated.
that's the right one.
That's why I'm asking for the,
The current one is a building permit authorizing one accessory apartment per lot may be granted if consistent with the following. So that's by right.
Right, that's-
That's the old verbiage.
Right, that's what I have the one that consistent with what David has.
That's old verbiage.
All right.
So,
So what I'm saying is, if this were to be stricken, then he doesn't come back to this board. He goes directly to David and gets a building permit.
As long as it complies with,
And then you have a right to appeal a permit. I understand that. But my point is how do we get to that point when I feel this is all right, I understand minor, major, but we've still had to make that decision more than once, right?
yeah, I guess, again, I only have to be here because of this condition. So that's why I'm asking it to be stricken, because building commissioner's not going to give me, if I apply for an accessory apartment, he's going to say, I can't grant it to you because there's this condition on here. So I am only here for that condition. I don't have to ask this board for an accessory apartment special permit. I don't have to apply for it. I am simply, in order to get to the next step, I need to ask for this condition to be removed. And again,
It almost comes down due to the fact of the zoning bylaw that we've overreached.
that you've changed it. I mean, it's changed.
That's what I'm
There
saying.
is-
Because he can't do that. Because he doesn't-
That's like saying we have a special permit that says you can't do a raise and replace on this lot, but yet raise and replace bylaw comes into effect.
You can't add a shower, you can't add a.
I get the point he's making. It's a pretty good point.
Like, one
That's
member,
exactly
I'm
what's
cool with
happened
that.
here.
I
Yeah,
don't think
and,
it's
and
cool doing-
I respectfully disagree with that, but
I don't think they have a problem conditioning on the kitchen, because he'd have, it wouldn't
But
work.
I don't even think we have a
It's
right to
accessory apartment.
condition on the condition, on the kitchen, because if
No, this
if we
plan won't
strike,
work.
if we strike, that's between those two then. It has nothing to do with us.
Correct.
All he's asking for is for us to strike the restriction. At that point in time, it's out of our power.
Right.
It has nothing to do with us.
And if I don't meet the conditions, if I don't meet the bylaw from an accessory apartment, David won't give me a building permit.
Now, we strike, Attorney Wall may appeal, but the bottom line is the question is to strike or not to strike? Do we have a right to strike under the existing situation? I'm happier the fact that you advertise it to the degree you did, because frankly, there's no higher level of advertisement.
Right. We treat it exactly as if I was applying for a new special permit or variance.
so if I could ask kind of like a series of questions to kind of get us thinking. So if the board were to rescind the condition and the property owner applied for a building permit for an accessory apartment and meets all the conditions, they could have an accessory apartment. But what happens if you rescind the condition and they don't do that and they apply for a building permit for an office or for a bedroom? And I heard what the building commissioner said. I guess the issue is that's kind of what I think the board might need to focus upon, because the question is why did the board impose that condition back then? Leaving aside the accessory apartment, the rest of the bylaw is still the same. And my understanding is, the way I read it, and I could be wrong, but my reading is single-family dwellings are allowed as of right, garages are allowed as an accessory use as of right. I don't see any detached bedrooms allowed by right.
Accessory apartment, that would be better.
But that's my question.
I
is if
just
they-
want to make a point that this is permitted. There's a stop work order on it pending the outcome of this hearing. So the permit there is not, they don't have to come and get a new permit because it's already done. If it's just has a stop work order on it pending the outcome of this.
But if I were Attorney Wall, I'd argue the fact that he doesn't have the right to appeal that permit because where the time has lapsed, the days have lapsed. When does the appeal of the permit come into effect?
And why did the stop order issue? Because if I may, I don't mean to come in the conversation, but
I
this
put a
is
stop work order on it because of the condition.
of the condition, okay. So,
Because of line six.
because here's exactly what I'm getting at is, what does the board think? With all due respect to the building commissioner's interpretation, which I respect, if you change the condition to say, we're going to rescind this to allow the applicant to apply for an accessory apartment, that's one thing. If you rescind it, just period, without any kind of other condition, then the applicant can apply for a permit to the building commissioner. And what the building commissioner is saying now is they can have a bedroom out there. And my experience with this board is, and if the only change to the bylaw was accessory apartment, then why has the board always prohibited living space in detached dwellings, detached
What are your
structures?
clients worried about? Let me ask you that question.
They're-
What is your concern?
They're worried about the things that I said. They're worried about the septic system being overly used.
That's the board, so that's not this board,
They're
right?
worried
And
about-
I'm just speaking as one
Septic
person.
system's designed for 4 bedrooms.
Right, but
And
it's,
that's
but
not
it-
this board.
But it's the groundwater. They're concerned about the
Well,
groundwater.
You know what, they have to go to Board of Health, as far as I'm concerned, I can't speak, this is the chairman, but I can tell you, that's not this board.
But I respectfully disagree, because if you look at your purposes, it's public health, safety, it's all those things.
I understand
we
that,
follow-
and
we
I'm not
follow the guidelines of the
more
other
detrimental, I get your theory, but still we have a Board of Health to protect this community, and is referenced to Title V and Board of Health, right?
Well,
So-
then I would go to the idea that this structure is authorized by a variance, and what's being asked to eliminate this condition is, does the elimination of this condition derogate from the public good?
Yeah, but what is so your clients are concerned about public good?
Right.
Is that the point?
In the sense, as manifested by flooding, groundwater tables, and
But you're
congestion.
saying flooding exists today.
But it was exacerbated by the house.
I gotta make a point. You keep saying that they're concerned about the additional use of the septic system. It's approved for a 4-bedroom. If they decided they wanted to take the existing house that has 3 bedrooms in it and add a bedroom inside that house, they can legally do that. There's still 4 bedrooms. It's still getting the same amount of use. It's no different than putting it over here, in my opinion. It's no different than putting it over the garage or putting it in the house. It's still getting the same use. Board of Health said, you can use that. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree 100% with that, and I think some of these other issues, with regard to flooding, and those were all dealt with by this board at the time that the raise and replace was
Yeah, you're not creating
handled.
any more
We're not
groundwater
changing
coming off
anything.
the house or drainage. It's the same building.
Exactly, it's the same building.
I don't have a problem conditioning it against, this is my opinion, conditioning it that you can't put a kitchen in and the shower.
See, I'd go
Yeah,
along
I
with that,
disagree,
too.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why, because I think the applicant has a request to us to remove. And my attitude is we either remove or don't remove, and then the rest of it is between him and the building inspector, the
Correct.
zoning enforcement officer. For us to condition, I don't know if we have a right to condition at this point, because the right is existing out there.
I think
about
we
an
do
in-law
because
apartment.
he applied for a permit for this, not an accessory apartment. So if he wants to do an accessory apartment, he has to go back to the building department, and then it's out of our hands
Yeah, but correct me
anyway.
if I'm wrong, David, you said that this plan meets the accessory apartment
No, he didn't.
criteria.
No, he didn't. He
No,
didn't
I
say
didn't say that at all.
that. He meets the criteria of what they applied for. They can't put an accessory apartment. They don't have a second means of egress.
So stop right there. So how did he get a building permit? Forget about the fact that, forget about our variance or our special permit. He came to you and applied for a building permit for space above a garage, under what theory? Not accessory apartment then.
It's an office.
Because it's done all over town. I mean, it's.
You can have-
So he said that's done all over town, so why are we gonna condition it?
Huh?
We don't have to condition it.
Yeah,
I just
people-
thought if that was concerned,
A
because if
year
we
or two down
conditioned
the
it,
road, they slide in.
they
and-
realize they can't, well, he's got the permit anyway, so
Yeah.
they can't
Why
finish
can
it.
we
We don't
con-
have the condition.
That's
You're
what my
right.
point.
You
I
don't
don't
have
understand
the
why we're conditioning if they're doing it
Because
all
he's
over
already got a
town.
permit.
Well,
to
the other
do
thing
it.
is to note is
So I
that
say we either remove it or don't remove it. I don't understand how we can
I
condition.
agree with what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess another argument, you could condition it so that the homeowner knows you can't go throw a kitchen in here later, legally.
But he could go back there and put an apartment in there and put a bedroom in there and a shower in there, legally.
right. I mean, that's the thing, I think we're over, I
Well,
think,
Board of Health's already calling this a bedroom. He's
I
already-
understand, so he could put a bedroom, a real bedroom in there, put a kitchen in there,
Yeah,
a
you call it an
shower in
office,
there,
yeah.
and put another door
No,
downstairs.
kitchen, you don't have a kitchen in your bedroom. A kitchen's different than a
No, no,
bedroom.
my point is this, he could put on that plan, he could alter that plan, go to this building inspector, and he could put an in-law apartment in there with a kitchen, a bedroom, and a shower, and we'd have nothing to say about it.
that's correct.
Let's wrap this up,
I-
because we're
I
gonna go
don't know.
around and around. So, any final comments before I get 2 minutes from anybody that wants to talk?
My final
out there, and then
comment
we'll
is,
vote.
is I think this last discussion is really what it's all about. I know the building commissioner is saying what he's saying, and I respect that opinion, but my experience in Mashpee has been the opposite, that you do not allow detached living space. It doesn't happen all over town. I gave you the 401 Monomoskoye case. I had another
Because
one
the
on,
bedrooms are probably maxed out.
I don't, but-
Well, I think you gotta take
because
each
of the bylaw
criteria.
That would be the reason, as one board member, I would have a problem with it. If the bedrooms are maxed out, I'm like, you're not gonna be able to make this into a bedroom.
But you don't have to come to this board, you only have to come to the zoning enforcement officer if you want an in-law apartment. It doesn't come to us anymore.
Correct.
It's not a variance, it's not a special permit, it's a matter of right.
Chris, any final comments?
No, I think I've said everything. I think, I agree with Mr. Bonvy, on this one. I can't, if my client wanted to move forward and actually apply for an accessory apartment, he can't do it simply because of this condition. And it was a condition, in my opinion, was brought because of the timing. And the bylaw has changed since that time, and it would allow it and allow me to go forward and do that, so. And again, the other issues about rehashing, this board had the opportunity, Conservation had the opportunity, Board of Health had the opportunity. It was approved back then. We're not changing the structure. It's simply what's going on inside the house. So I'd ask
Board of Health
that,
had an issue, I'd have a huge issue. We all, we don't.
All right, anybody that would like to comment from the audience, raise your hand, one at a time, 2 minutes. come right up to the mic, go ahead, and give us your name and address. You can have your say.
Good evening. I'm Doug Crosby at 29 Wilson's Grove, and behind me, anybody wants to raise their hand, are people all that live in Wilson's Groves that are all abutters or near abutters to this site. It's about the big picture, and I hear all the legalese, but the attorney started with, it's punishing. You've got one guy with his big new house, and it's wonderful, and it's punishing to him. Julie, will you stand up for a second? Her great-grandfather bought that property and built that house. My grandfather did ours. We've been there for 80 years. And now we have one of 3 houses whose septic system has failed, literally, and we've got the other 2 are questionable. And all this is because, and I'm not looking for fault, you need to know what the story is somehow in a floodplain a couple of years ago when COVID was happening, somebody came in and just put in so much soil that all the water comes down, and now we were even. When this gentleman drives his car in his driveway, his headlights go into the bedroom of my home. That's how much fill there is. So all that moisture comes down. It comes down to our backyard. It comes down to Julie's backyard. It comes down to Rob's backyard. We can solve this. You heard the gentleman say, he's not worried about the water. I'm worried about the water. Julie's worried about the water because she's trying to work with people, but she hasn't found a way to take the septic system. She said 1 design, 2 designs. We've been at hearings. I've been at hearings with her trying to find a way to make it happen. So we're taking care of the big house. And meanwhile, the people who've been here for close to 100 years, it's like, screw them. I'm sorry. Can we step back and find a way to work together? If he's willing to not have any more water in the ground, that's the problem. We can't undo probably what was done in the floodplain. God knows why. But can we stop putting more water in the ground? If he doesn't care, all we care about is not getting more water rushing into our backyard. How would you feel if everybody was up like this and you're getting it's palpable and it's failed. So that's what's happening in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else?
May I ask a real quick question? Sir, when you talk about water in the ground, you talk about maybe the use of a bathroom. How do you not put any more water? How would this, if we were to lift this modification, how would it put more water in the ground, other than the fact that it's an additional toilet?
That's the way.
So are you saying that if there weren't a toilet in here, there wouldn't be additional water in the ground, and you wouldn't be against the application?
Yes, effectively what I'm saying is because I know what happens over time. We all know what happens over time, and space evolves and gets used, and then there's a kitchenette, and then it becomes a kitchen.
Well, I think there's enough people around that if you saw a kitchen cabinet walking into that garage, you'd probably be...
I've heard all this stuff. I live behind, for crying out loud. There hasn't been any construction in that area for a long time. This was all done a long time ago. I can't give you dates, but it's like, come on, things happen. So all I'm saying is just don't let any water go in the ground right there. This place is like 30 feet from my back door.
I don't know how this board can do that, other than to say to the applicant's attorney, for at least the short term while the owner's there, don't put a bathroom or a shower in there. But you know what, 10 years from now, or 2 years from now, no one can control that, because if we remove this part of the permit, that would say the following, that the applicant could put, subject to following the rules and regulations, an in-law apartment there, which would be a shower, a kitchen, a washer and dryer. That's more water going into the ground.
Right, yeah.
We can't, so if we lift this condition, we can't control, in my opinion, one member here only, we can't control what water he's adding to the system.
Coincidentally,
I've
I've
designed to handle a
Right.
four-bath.
And so, but he will be adding,
but it's like,
but he
listen,
could be adding more. I don't know how we can control
You guys know
that.
better than I do. Mashpee's doing I've talked to your town planner about this too. Listen, in another 20 years or 30 years, you're going to have sewage systems.
I
and it's going
understand
to
that.
be
We got to
different.
get from here to there.
Yeah, but so you're going to screw 4 or 5 or 10 families in Wilson's Grove so he can have more water?
No, but how can we work
See,
together?
our attorney would be happy to work with you. You're out of that's not my specialty. I don't know the how. I'm just saying, please, can't we find some way to do that? I don't have a grudge against this gentleman. I really don't. But we have a problem.
I have to look at, as one member, I have to look at the engineer that designed the septic system, designed a system to handle 4 bathrooms. The applicant hasn't put that fourth bathroom in, and he is gonna add a half bath. They're saying he could have a shower and the system can handle that.
I get that.
I have to go by, and the Board of Health said this can handle the flow.
But he doesn't want the more
You're
water.
telling me
But
all
I
this
don't,
stuff.
I'm not an engineer, I don't understand how the
not the
water
number
gets
of
from there out onto your property.
So the law
And I
makes it.
don't know if it's from that
So
groundwater.
listen, you're telling me
I
the
mean,
law makes it
rainwater.
okay, and
But
meanwhile.
you know what, sir, the only thing I can
recommend.
recommend is one member of this board, only I can recommend, which is only, it's, you know, what, dealing in good faith, okay, that's all I can ask, is to say to Chris, talk to your applicant, talk to your client and say, you know what, these people have brought up an issue, when you go to the building inspector, make sure there's no additional water added, meaning no toilet, no kitchen. But you know what, he has a right.
He may, and if he wants to
He
forego
has a
that
legal
right.
right, in my opinion, if properly
And-
applied for,
and
and
that's-
those
that's
applications.
fine.
But all I can do is one member of this board to say, can you work with him? And if he doesn't, he doesn't.
And all
If
I-
we choose to lift.
And I don't know what my rights are, but I'm going to find out what they are, because this is going to be a problem, and our house is going to be next. You know, it's not, this is untenable.
Well, my role is to protect both rights of whoever's building and
Right,
and the
exactly.
neighbors. So that's why we have, we adhere to flood zone rules, and basically this hearing tonight isn't about that, but. Go ahead.
Sure. Come up if you would. Your name and address.
Picture. It's a big picture problem.
My name is Julie Muir, 31 Wilson Grove. I just want to say this garage is a mansion. It's not just a garage. It's 5 times the size of my home. That's it.
Everyone knows what this is.
It has a balcony overlooking the ocean. I don't think it was ever meant to be just a garage. It's a mansion next to a mansion. And the town allowed them to come in and take down a bird sanctuary where there were hundreds of birds displaced for weeks on the beach because they tore down all the land where they put that garage. And, you know, I've been there the whole time. I've seen the whole thing, and it's sad. That's all I want to say. I have no disrespect for the people that own it. What was allowed there is really unbelievable. I cried when I pulled in my driveway. All the trees were gone. But town allowed it, so. And now I'm having a problem with my place, trying to get things approved by the board so that I can potentially sell the house, because I've seen enough. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come right up. And your name and address, if you would.
Anne Marie Colebrook, 35 Wilson's Grove. I abut, and my brother and my family abut the property we're talking about. I would live next to Julie, who just spoke. I don't know the bylaws. I don't know the rules. I respect all of you for doing the work you do. What I don't understand is the initial permit or the initial request for this garage was simply a garage with storage space, no plumbing. I don't know why they did a stop on the permit right now for building. I don't know what is in there right now. Is there a shower? Is there a toilet? Is there a sink? And if it's not this board that can, or you can just strike it, and it all becomes now in your hands, does that mean that that initial request for just a garage with storage is completely gone, and now it could become, as you put it, an in-law apartment with an egress? Am I clear in understanding that's how this works right now?
If this board strikes, that is the ability for the applicant to move forward with that application. And they would not have to come back to this board, in my opinion.
I understand that. So that initial request for a building that was simply a garage with storage only, without anybody's approval here except for one person, can change like that.
Well,
So-
it hasn't changed yet, and secondly, remember, the rules were different back then. If the
Oh, I
applicant were
understand
to come in
that. The
front of this board
bylaws were
today-
different, saying that they couldn't do the detached apartment, but they can now.
Exactly.
And legally, I'm not a lawyer, but that's a big question in my head. Why do the bylaws apply now when they didn't apply when the initial permit went in? I don't know
They were
legally.
changed in a public meeting.
They were changed at a town meeting.
So-
Town meeting.
So the
Okay, so
applicant
that's
is
why
sitting-
when he was hired, he understood that these were the bylaws and it was approved. I understand that.
If I can say, one blessing or curse is, every house in that neighborhood basically can't do anything without approval from this board. So if you want to put an addition on or add on to your house, I know that there is one gentleman on Wilson's Grove who applied for a deck, to enlarge his deck, in 2015 or 2017 maybe, and that bylaw changed. It was denied because it was 20% lot coverage at that time, and that's changed to 25%. So he's going to come to this board in a couple weeks with that bylaw being changed where it's allowed by the board, but now they have to do the same, essentially the same thing as we're doing tonight.
Okay. Well, the only other thing I say, I'm sure my time is up, but I understand the bylaws, I understand the changes, I understand your approval process and your approval process in this whole scene, or these past few years. What is a shame for the neighbors, and I'm speaking for myself and my family, is that the issues that have been brought up here environmentally, as well as the flood zones. I know it's a issue that doesn't really belong here, but it's a shame that the initial request, when there was a variance, and I believe there had to be a variance for that garage, detached garage, for the approval process.
There was a variance on
Yes.
special permit.
So the neighbors approved that variance, or said yes to that variance.
The neighbors did not have to say yes or no, this board would have had to. But the neighbors
But
have rights, just
we
like
have
you
rights to be able to express our opinion, which I believe we did at the time.
And you can appeal, you have a
Correct,
lot of rights.
Correct. So my point is that it is a shame now that that initial request, that where the neighbors all agreed it was a storage and a garage, will become more of an in-law apartment or some dwelling of some sort that will bring more water and things into our environment, which we have already expressed that there's been changes within the last year to people's homes that are majorly impacting their lives. I thank you for your respect. I thank you for your work, but I'm really sad and sorry to hear the process is leading in that direction when it will impact so many neighbors.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Ron, would you like to make a motion?
I will make a motion.
Brad, you're sitting on this.
So, I'd like to make a motion that we issue a modification to Jamie and Paul Saganey of 28 G Place in reference to an approved special permit SP 2019-53 and a variance V-201954 of zoning bylaws to eliminate the prohibition of finishing the space above the detached garage on property located in the Pompanesett Overlay and R3 zoning district, map 118, parcel 108, Mashpee, Mass. Owner of record Daniel J. Saganey, trustee of the Poppy Realty Trust, with the following conditions. One, board determined the applicant meets all the conditions of a modification under Mass General Law 48, Section 9. Number two, first and second floor plan prepared for Saganey Residence, 28 G Place, Mashpee, Mass. Job number 1815, date January 22, 2021. Scale is noted, sheet A-2, prepared by Architect Associates. Three, a condition on all town comments read into the record. Before condition on all comment changes to the plans that will require the applicant to return to the zoning board of appeals.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Jim seconds. Brad, how do you vote?
I'm going to say yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Scott? Ron?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain. Okay?
Thank you, members of the board. Appreciate your time as always.
Junk. This is all junk.
All right. So, what do I put?
It really goes back to
I don't like this at all. I don't like this thing at all.
Yeah.
They're real slides, it's slime.
You missed the ball.
You see this happening all the time.
Get rid of it. Trash. I should trash it. I don't know. You know, I think this is trash too.
Whether or not.
One can sign.
No, Brad is.
One, you're gonna sign.
See again? Oh,
Hand this down to Brad.
isn't that nice, Mr. Furber? I know.
We're gonna be creating a. Right where it says, you got it. Today's the 11th, 5/11,
Yeah, see, John got, he's last.
22.
Because I wanted to be the one guy that said no.
Any more signatures? You want anything else?
Yeah.
His presentation or anything like
That's
that?
the advantage of going last year, you abstain if everybody else votes yes.
I know, I saw that too.
No, I was
I
gonna,
should have said, I'm voting yes if you would have.
I was gonna abstain anyway.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, do you see what's written on there? Up on the top?
Yeah, but you did that just at the very end.
When did I do that? Halfway through.
Well, I'm done for the night. I thank you all.
Wait a minute, you're not done, you gotta sign some stuff.
You all tied out after that?
That's it. It's,
I wouldn't go in that parking lot right now.
I know. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Maybe Rodney can get you an escort.
Yeah.
Escort, get him out of here.
Ron, do you have a police escort, please? I'm going out to my car. I'm in conflict. I can't sit in the next hearing, so I'm gonna get tomatoes thrown at me.
You don't have a motorcycle?
I don't have a motorcycle. I have a
Bring your
car.
bike to it, it was-
I'm gonna get there very quickly. Drive fast.
Can I ask a question? A lot was made of what happened orally at that 2019 hearing. The owner, the then owner's saying that I don't intend to put a bedroom, I don't intend to do this, I don't intend to do that. What if the property was sold between now and then? And a brand-new owner comes in who didn't say anything at that meeting?
That's correct. There's there have been changes in the law.
Variance goes with the land, it doesn't go to the person who applied.
Was it 511, right?
Yep.
Here you go,
We're
sir.
following
You're right, Charlie.
the law.
There's no
Yeah,
question.
everyone had to go to that town meeting and vote against
Jesus,
that.
I saw you almost
I
put
looked,
that.
yeah.
I use my own pen, all right? See right there?
All right, are we ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, Sharon, would you read other business, please?
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve.
Trash?
Yeah, but I said,
Trash.
yeah, no. Move to approve the meeting minutes of April 27th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Well,
gentlemen.
we
Good
have
night, David.
More
Thank you.
work to do. Hold on one second. Bear with me.
We're still in the air.
We have one more thing.
My paper is
Executive session.
only,
Are we gonna be on air for executive session?
yeah, hold on one second. Please. Here we go. All right. Okay, the board is now going to enter into executive session. 2, a discussion of strategy relative to pending legislation in the matter of Haney, Trust of Gooseberry Island Trust versus Town of Mashpee Zoning Board of Appeals et al., USDC, Massachusetts, docket number 21-10718-JGD. Okay, the zoning board will not reconvene in open session. And the time right now is 7:33. Okay, sitting on this executive session will be 3 regular board members, as well as, let's see, George and Scott. So Ron, you can leave.
I feel I may be in conflict or would be in conflict, so I will be not part of it. Thank you.
Okay,
Hey,
so,
George and Scott, I'm already Oh, I'm already a member if you haven't known.
Yeah, I know. All right, so Scott, would you, wait a minute,
Just yell for help.
Protect
back
me.
up, so
Going
it's,
out in this, you know, this-
this-
You're in this, right? So
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, plus one more.
yeah, I'm sorry, 4. My notes are screwed up. All right. Scott, would you please make the motion to enter into executive
George
session?
is there, okay. I move that the board convene an executive session pursuant to GLC 30A, Section 21A3, for the purpose of discussing strategy relative to pending litigation in the matter of Haney trustee of Gooseberry Island Trust versus Town of Mashpee Zoning Board of Appeals et al., USDC Massachusetts docket number 21-10718-JGD, with the chair declaring that that such discussion in an open meeting may be detrimental effect on the litigation position of the board.
Okay, do we have a second? All right, second is Jim. So I'm going to poll the board, poll the board. And George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, let's clear the room of everyone that's not supposed to.